Okay, so today is Saturday morning, the 18th of January. In the U.S., it's 17th evening time, Friday evening. And so uh, today we're going to talk about spiritual friends. Now, you could say that the best way to understand it is not an either or, but say a 1-2 punch, that one leads to the other when it's done correctly. So, what is the 1-2 punch? The first thing that the Buddha recommends is to go off into seclusion, to go away from other people, to start looking at what's going on. Now, when we talk about looking what's going on, let's make sure that we understand that we're talking about the Satipatthana, the four foundations of mindfulness. Almost all of the meditation teachers will take one aspect of the four foundations of mindfulness, but that we need to practice all four of them. Now, what are the four foundations of mindfulness is that we have to look at what the body is doing. We start maybe with the breathing, or we add the breathing to it, but the whole intention of the body aspect is to relax the body, to relax the tensions. And if somebody says, oh, well, I don't have any tensions, then the answer to that is congratulations. So just relax. And then we have um, the feelings. And I would say that the feelings are the ones that we're going to be working on kind of the most. But that's a later practice. It's actually easier to watch the breath than it is to change the feelings. In fact, if we're watching the breath correctly, that means that we're taking control of it, taking charge of it, and actually changing the way that we breathe so that we're breathing in a more relaxed way so that we can then relax the body through a relaxed breath. But the feelings, we need to nudge them along because they're deep seated. In fact, most of the things that we have learned throughout our lives is all of the various ways and triggers to how to feel bad. And so there's a whole lot of stuff to go through with that. And then the third is really a big important one that is not talked about very much, and that is our let us say, state of mind. It's talked about in the sutras as a state of mind, but we can think of it also in the sense of intention, but a better word to use for our understanding is the word attitude, in the sense that we either have a victim's attitude, a loser's attitude, or we have a winner's attitude. A moment ago, we were talking about that all of a sudden the faucet breaks and the water is spewing all over the place. We can take care of that situation because it requires action, and we can take care of that action with either a victim's attitude, oh, poor me, look what the water is doing, oh, I'm having so much trouble, or we can do it with a winner's attitude, hey, I could do this, we got that fixed. And then the fourth quality of the Satipatthana is what's happening right now in all respects, including what's happening in the mind, which normally is some sort of thought, a mind moment. And we can have mind moments of things falling apart. We can have mind moments of things changing. and all of that kind of stuff. And the question some would ask would be, well, which one comes first? And the answer to that is in a sutta, number 111, where the Buddha says it in the sense of one by one as they occur. So whatever comes up for you, that's what you're going to work with, if we can call it work. Another way of thinking about it is to play with it. So now that we've got that, we can say, all right, we go off into seclusion and we start looking at the kind of thoughts we have. We look at our attitudes. We look at our intentions. We relax the body. And eventually, by doing that correctly, we begin to feel safe and secure and comfortable and relaxed. And when we feel safe and secure and comfortable and relaxed in the body, that leads then to a state of satisfaction. Now, what I'm talking about now of safe, secure, comfortable, relaxed, and satisfaction actually is the Pali's definition, what do you call it, the lexicon. The lexicon's definition of the word sukha. Now, sukha, in many different languages, in Thai language, even in the Gujarati language in India, I know about that one because I had a student whose parents were Gujarati, and so he knew that. Is also opposites in the Pali language. The two words are sukha and dukkha. Sukha and dukkha are opposites of one another, which now we're looking at the entire teaching of the Buddha. He says, both formally and now, I teach only one thing, and that is dukkha, dukkha nirodha. So the whole point of the practice is coming out of our dissatisfactions and coming into a state of satisfaction. That's all the teaching of the Buddha is all about. We're not talking about highfalutin stuff. We're talking about simply sitting down and chilling out, cooling off, become satisfied, telling ourselves things like no place to go, nothing to do, having the attitude of it does not matter what comes up, I can handle it. No matter how obstructed the mind becomes, I can throw those obstructions out and come back to the state of seeing things the way that they really are. And so the question then would be, if we're practicing this in seclusion, what's the point of being around other people? Well, it depends upon who you're around. If you go down to the local pub, go down to the bar, go to the Democratic Action Committee, go to the Republican hangout, you're not necessarily going to the right places. If you go to church, you're probably not going to the right place at all. So when we're talking about Sangha, what we're actually talking about is finding people who are nobly minded, who are practicing correctly, who can help you practice correctly, and you can help them practice correctly so that everybody winds back up in a state of satisfaction. Everything's okay. Everything's all right. Now, for many people getting started with that, we have to understand that there are many, many different levels of the state of satisfaction. But satisfaction is satisfaction. And if we're not satisfied with the state of satisfaction we have, then that's dissatisfaction. The example of that would be the guy who says, oh, well, I have joy, but not enough. I want more. All right. What is that? That's dissatisfaction with what we've got right now. And so we can begin with the whole quality of just enough. Just enough satisfaction. You don't have to have 100% shining gold. We can just have everything's all right, everything is fine. Then, in fact, in the example of the water breaking, we can be satisfied while we get up and go operate with it. We can be satisfied while we're fixing it, and then we can be even more satisfied cleaning up the mess, and then becoming even more satisfied than that after we sit down having done a good job. And then we can forget all about the water tap that broke, and that's when we could be even more satisfied. Nothing to it. It's all in the past now. So, how do we then balance these two? Well, I would say that over time, in the beginning, people do spend more time alone and less time in Sangha. But as they grow and mature in the Dhamma, they will actually spend more time in Sangha, more and more time in Sangha, more and more time around our friends. But that doesn't mean that while we're spending time around our friends that we're going to be yakety, 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 yakety about stuff. That in fact, once somebody asked me, what happens when two arahats meet? The answer is they just vibe together. There's not much to say. Just not much to say. And in that regard, we can look at it from the perspective of it kind of takes one to know one. A lot of people have great respect for this guru and that guru, probably on the internet or reading their books or whatever like that. But the respect that they have for these people is, let us say, borrowed from whoever wrote the book. That we don't really know the gurus very well. That in fact, the more students that the guru has, the less likely you are going to be able to have some time with him. Because there's all kinds of people who are going to, let us say, desire time with him. And therefore, these people are not the kind of people you want to be around. People who are in the state of desire to be around the guru, rather than those students who are satisfied to be at a distance from the guru. Those are the people to kind of hang out with, are people who are satisfied. So, the next point that we can talk about is that what about in the West, especially now that we have the internet, what about all of these guided meditations? Well, guess what? We've done guided meditations here on this group. Done it on Sunday. We've done guided meditations. We've done breathing meditations. We've done other kinds of meditations. But I tend to not to do that. One of the things that I found out years and years ago when I was teaching the retreats at Wat Suan Mok, that students would get really highly attached to the guided meditations. They liked them very much. And what that really meant is that they don't want to do the work. They want the guide to do the work. They want the guide to remind them to come back. Everything's all right. No problems. I feel good. I got a good attitude. The body's relaxed. Come back to the checkout of the Satipatthana. And that really, we need to practice this alone because we need to practice it a lot. The problem then again with these guided meditations is that they're infrequent. They don't happen very often. You're lucky to do it once a week. But what we need to practice that day in and day out, at least all day long. to be aware of your thoughts, to be aware of how you feel, to be aware of the body, to be aware of your attitude on a regular basis. In the sutta, it uses the word unremitting. Now, unremitting does not mean constantly. Let me give you a little example of the difference between unremitting and constantly. Let's say that this is a drum head, my hand, and this is the mallet. Is this the way to play a drum? The drum head and the mallet are there consistently. But is this the way to play a drum? This is unremitting. Keep coming back and coming back and coming back. Take the effort to keep coming back and coming back. Remind yourself to keep coming back and coming back over and over and over again. This is the value of a guided meditation, only in the sense that the teacher is going to help you to remember. But guided meditations are good for, let us say, a very, very rank beginner, sort of to give him the idea. But whenever I talk to someone, one-on-one, a new student, I generally tell him what the practice is and then see if he's going to do it right then and there. Most students don't start to practice when I tell them how to practice. You know what they do instead? They ask questions. One question after another question after another question after another question. And this is quite the way that Westerners operate, because they want to make sure that they do it right. Well, guess what? If you had a piano teacher and a piano lesson, if you spent your whole hour with the piano teacher asking her questions, you're probably not going to have a very good music session. No music played, just a bunch of questions. And so we need to come out of our questions about how to practice and actually just start doing it. Yes, Ivan, you got your hand up.
So what to do usually is caused by fear, and also like earlier mentioned about the guided meditation is this subconscious idea of someone please save me, like is rather than thinking like, oh, I can do this myself. It's
Say what?
I was saying that wanting to people to save you, like this mindset of like, someone please save me. At least I found that in myself. Every time I try to latch on to a guided meditation, is someone do the work for me. It's all fear. It's just fear. Wanting to get it right is just fear.
Wanting to get it right in fear of doing it wrong actually prevents us from just doing it. That's also, let us say, kind of a double mind that I have seen with especially online guided meditations, to where the people want to do the online guided meditation so that they can get it right. But while they're there, they don't want to be seen by other students. This is especially true, by the way, in retreats. The Buddha says, go to the forest, go to the foot of a tree, go to an empty hut, go to a pile of straw, sit down, and bring mindfulness to the fore. Now, what do we mean by mindfulness to the fore? Is start looking at what you're doing, satipatthana wise. Sati, 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 sati. Four sati, satipatthana. Sati of the body, look at the body. Sati, remembering to look at the feelings. Sati, remember to look at the attitude that we have. And sati for looking at the moment by moment thoughts that we have. Sati is what we're practicing. bringing mindfulness to the fore, which means bringing it into the present moment and practicing. By the way, the Buddha did not say, go to Spirit Rock and do a retreat. Join a Zoom group and do a retreat. He never said that. Well, the argument would be, yeah, but he didn't know about Zoom. He didn't know about retreats. Well, if he didn't know about retreats, he could have invented retreats, but he never invented them. He didn't say, go practice in a group. He never said that. He said, go practice alone. You could say, in fact, that the whole point about doing it in a group is now a logistics issue, not a Dhamma issue. It's a logistics issue that a good teacher is going to take a student one-on-one. But a Western meditation teacher, he wants the money. He wants a whole crowd of people. He wants to say a few words to a whole lot of people and get the bread from it, rather than spending time one-on-one. And in fact, the one-on-one time is more valuable because the teacher can look and remind the student, look at what you're doing. Look at what you're doing. So, a lot of people, if they go to a retreat, they're not actually in seclusion. They're in a room full of people. They have this thing called noble silence, and you can put noble silence in the definition of pretending that you're alone while you're in a crowd. Pretending to be alone while you're in a crowd is not a bad thing, but the Buddha doesn't talk about it in that sense. He says, go away from the crowd. Get yourself secluded so that you can really look at what you're doing, as opposed to look at how you're responding to various aspects of the crowd. It's very important to start looking at what's happening within your own mind. That in fact is well known and has been talked about for 40 or 50 years. It's called the Vipassana romance. How many people know what is the Vipassana romance? Does anybody know? Alexander, you raised your hand. Great. Tell us, Alexander, what is the Vipassana romance? You probably heard me talk about it.
When you sit and stare at a nice person for a week or so without talking, and you come up with all kinds of fantasies in your head about how in love with them you are.
That's right. The Vipassana romance is when you're in the meditation hall having fantasies about someone else in the meditation hall. And the end of the retreat, you've got this plan. You've got this whole long dialogue set up about what you're going to talk about and everything like that. And when you go looking for her, you find she's already left. She was not having a Vipassana romance with you. She may have had a Vipassana romance with somebody else. And so this is one of the dangers of having retreats, is that we get fixated on something that's there, that's outside of ourselves, rather than paying attention to what's going on the inside of the mind. So Zoom calls have a value only in the sense of getting someone started in practice. That's the beginning. And then the Zoom calls, like the calls that we're having here on Skype, is sort of at the end, where we're, let us say, humming and vibrating together in a wholesome way. This is Sangha, and we're looking at Sangha. Now, what is the word Sangha? What does that mean? Actually, the first place that it ever came up was when the Buddha invented his group called the Bhikkhu Sangha. And the Bhikkhu Sangha then is referred to as either the monks who were living together, let us say in a monastery, or it's referred to in a vast general point of all of the bhikkhus. But generally, the Bhikkhu Sangha is going to be the bhikkhus who you are around. Now, in Thailand, one thing that's quite interesting is the bhikkhus travel quite a lot, even though there's rules about beginning students to spend their first 5 years in the area of the Upajjhaya. That's then deteriorated into you can go wherever you want so long as you get permission from the Upajjhaya, and that's deteriorated down to you can go wherever you want so long as the Upajjhaya, your preceptor, knows where you are, and that further deteriorates in is that he don't know and he don't care where you are. And so we've had several guys in our Sangha who have ordained. We've got ordained monks. We don't have one online today, but we've got David and Daniel and Kat and Eric and Himasitu, but they're none of them are on. But the thing that I've noticed about them, Daniel was the first one that I noticed, and then I see it in Kat also, is that they want to be out traveling. They want to get a vast understanding of the Sangha, but another quality has to do with that wherever they are, they're not satisfied with what's happening right here. We want to go someplace else. So the question is, can you learn to become satisfied with where you are? Then travel becomes easy. But if you're not satisfied with where you are, then travel is not satisfying. Getting to a new place may be interesting, but it's not satisfying. And then it gets old and not satisfying, and we haven't ever moved into that state of satisfaction. We've just moved from one dissatisfaction to another, to another, to another. So we have to be careful that we're practicing being satisfied with where we are right here, right now, is good enough. And that if we can find friends who are practicing that same thing, then we've got Sangha. This is what the definition of Sangha are, is that we have friends who are always looking at their own best welfare in a state of well-being, and they're looking for your best interest, your welfare also. One of the rules of the Patimokkha is that monks do not compete with each other. They don't play games against each other. They don't hide each other's robes or bowl or something like that, play a trick on them. We also don't gossip. We don't talk to one monk about another monk. When you're talking to someone else, talk about what's happening between the two of you. We don't talk about third parties very much. So, one of the qualities then that we can look at is to start to stay away from normal society. Why is that we don't mix with normal society? It's because the people out in normal society do not have your best interest at heart. They don't even have their own best interest at heart. If they did have their own best interest at heart, then they would have your best interest at heart also. But oh no, everybody's out looking for an advantage. But in fact, I just mentioned to Robert that don't worry, be happy. And don't worry about all of those other people out there, because all those other people are just busy making up lies about why they got defeated. They're just, you know, Look how many lies you have told in the past that you justified what you were doing. If we can look at that and see that, hey, I'm not going to be lying anymore. I can start telling the truth. Because if I can tell the truth, then I can begin to live the truth. Now, we're talking about here, we're talking about truth versus lies, not some sort of ultimate truth. But in fact, an ultimate truth is merely just a concept that we'll think up. You can almost say that any time that you have an ultimate truth, that's just something somebody made up. It's just another lie. What we have is truth about what really is reality right here, right now. There is no ultimate truth. Those who are out seeking ultimate truth, guess what? They're not even enjoying the ordinary, actual truth of the moment. They're too busy looking for something big to see what's really going on around them. Philosophers and religious people often fall into that mistake. To where Buddhist practitioners are practicing, let's look at the real truth, the one that's actual, the one that's right here, right now. Ivan, go ahead.
The simple truth is the breath right now is really nice, right? Is that the truth?
Yes. If you don't think that your breath right now is really nice, just hold your breath. Wait until it's a good enough breath and then have a breath.
Yeah.
Yeah, this breath's not good enough. I'm just going to hold. I'm going to wait. Okay, now. Didn't take very long. Yes, Max, go ahead.
Just a slight comment on that. It's so funny because the just recent meditation, I did try that holding of the breath and just being happy with it and whatever, and then just see what happens. And after I stopped doing that, I actually felt very satisfied, very happy that I stopped doing that. And I was like, okay, I could just let it be. It is really nice to have. Yeah.
Yeah, but here's the real point is that after you stopped doing it was a new right now. And that's when the satisfaction came, was in the new right now, because in the old right now, holding the breath, not very satisfying. It comes from wanting something. But in fact, as I've said before, one of the classical definitions of dukkha is wanting something you don't have. And so the wisdom would be wanting things that are easy to come by, or better still, let's not be wanting so much stuff. Let's be satisfied with the way things are in this present moment. In this present moment, everything is all right. Everything is fine. Not a problem, not a worry. And when we can be around people who are like that, then it kind of rubs off, it kind of sustains and sustills. But in fact, if you were sit around a person where everything was all right, everything was fine, he doesn't really have to teach you a lot of Dhamma. He just rubs off on you. Everything is all right, everything is fine. Yeah, the water pipe broke. That's all right, everything is fine. Let's go have fun fixing it. Everything's all right. This is the way that we begin to start practicing. And we can begin to practice this over and over and over and over again. How many times a day, Ben, do you tell yourself everything's okay? Everything is all right? Wow, this is good. I'm satisfied.
Yeah.
All the time, really.
You're beginning to do it a lot, huh?
Mm. Yeah, the body's been sick for about a week, but I've been perfectly satisfied with it being sick and with still going to work. And then today it's a bit more sick, so I'm not going to work and satisfied with that too.
Mm-hmm. And so this is where we practice. I think, in fact, you could go so far as to say that Western meditation has an obsession about sitting meditation. In fact, they've got an obsession about meditation. Guess what? In the suttas, there is no place, no word, any place in the Pali that can be translated as meditation. But you do see places, like in the Anapanasati Sutta and others, it uses the phrase, thus one trains oneself. This is skill development. This is practice, 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 a training practice. We have to keep practicing, keep training and training, and you could get a really, really excellent practice session in while walking down the street. You can get a really excellent practice session in while you're eating lunch. Why did I say that? Is because while you're eating lunch, if you're paying attention closely to what you're doing, the Buddha actually has, I can use this word, he had mindfulness of eating, which we can call an eating meditation. But we have to remember this word meditation has not the qualities that we think it does, but rather it has the qualities of training the mind. All right. Now, most of the time when we're eating, we learn to eat from a whole lot of other people, watching them eat. Every little kid watches mommy and daddy the way that they eat. Most of the people, when they are eating in the sense of having already put food in their mouth, what do? After you put the food in your mouth, what happens? Don't we use the plate? Don't we use the fork and spoon, etc., and stir up more food, get the next bite ready? Maybe even put the next bite in the mouth before this bite's even finished. And then what do we do after we have two bitefuls of in the mouth? What do? We're playing with our food even yet again, getting the next bite ready. And then we put that in the mouth without even having finished the first one. Yes, that's exactly what happens. So what we can do in a practice for skillfulness of eating is to slow down. But in fact, in the sutras, it talks about that the monk withdraws his hand from the bowl. Now, there's two ways of doing that. You withdraw your hand from the bowl when you're set the bowl down because you're finished, maybe after you've washed the bowl. But we're talking about moment by moment, mouthful by mouthful, we withdraw the hand from the bowl. What that would mean now in modern times is that after you take a bite of food, set your dinnerware down. If you're eating the sandwich, set the sandwich down on the table and enjoy the biteful that you have in your mouth. Mull it around, suck the juice out of it, chew it up, look for all the kinds of things that are still hard that need to be chewed, like all grains of corn, peanuts, bread that's a little bit hard in the corner, etc., like that, until it's all mush. And as we've gotten it completely masticated, then as we swallow it, We then look to make sure that there is nothing left. The Buddha talks about it, not even a grain of rice is left in the mouth. We check it out. We make sure that the mouth is empty, and then we have the next bite. But I bet none of you practice that. Nobody does. Oh no, the next bite goes in before the last bite is finished. But don't we live our whole lives like that? We never really finish anything. We just keep gobbling. And so we could say then that this is what, in that regard, this is how we're going to actually practice our life, is by enjoying this moment, mull it over, break down all the hard parts, make this moment into a mush, swallow it, make sure that it's empty, and then we take the next bite of right here, right now. If we could live our life like that, that's how it becomes unremitting mindfulness. We keep coming back to this moment. We keep coming back over and over and over again, as opposed to the way that most people live their lives is trying to make the most of it, trying to gobble it down. And so they'll eat food, playing music on the stereo, playing on their cell phone, doing all kinds of activities and not really enjoying any of them, but just bouncing back and forth, rather than taking a moment to actually enjoy what we're doing. And this is what the Buddha teaches, is to be satisfied with what we're doing right now. Not wanting the next bite, not wanting more, not stirring the pot, but just enjoying this mouthful. So, do we have any questions about this? We can say a bit more about online meditation groups, but generally, those groups don't really teach this kind of thing that we need to do, in the sense of being here in the present moment. And in fact, the guided meditation almost robs us of the skill development that we need to remember on our own. And so we can actually become addicted to guided meditations. It's quite possible that, in fact, that a teacher has a guided meditation on Zoom once a week, and half or two-thirds of the people keep coming back to that over and over and over again, and throughout the week, they're not practicing. They're not practicing what he did in the guided meditation. They want him to do it for them. And they think that, oh, that's a practice enough. Actually, we can say that in the ultimate sense, your practicing is enough when you're doing it right now. And there's a whole lot of right nows coming your way. So whenever you have a right now, now's the time to practice.
Hi, I didn't really think you understood what I meant about the guided meditation. That was like an introductory course.
Okay, go ahead.
But
I'll see if I can get you this time.
regularly, they sit in a room together without talking, and I see you've kind of debunked that people are falling in love with the other people that might be in that room. But I'm in a state where most of the people are not. I hate to say they're not nice, but I'm looking for a community of people that are like-minded, that have good morals and good values that align with my own. That's why I was looking for a
Right.
formal.
That's the whole point. If you can go to a group where people actually are practicing in that group, what I mean by practicing is to gain the skill right there and then in that room, so that they can take that out and continue to practice as they leave the room, as they travel home, when they get home, etc. But normally, when the meditation session is over, people kind of forget about it. So, David, does tell me what you mean more about the Zoom calls and the sitting meditation.
Oh, I haven't really done that. I was just asking advice because I used to go to a physical Sangha in a place that I lived 2 years ago. I moved and I haven't been connected with any kind of Sangha. And it was a lay Sangha. It was lay people, lay teacher, and it really didn't resound with me. Kind of like you're saying, it kind of looked like a Ponzi scheme. You know, somebody that wanted dues and to get people to formally go to retreats and declare for their teacher. And
I understand. I have seen that. I could use the word occasionally. I could use the word from time to time, but I would rather say it that that's what's typically the case, especially in what you would call a lay Sangha.
that's all I can find here. I've never actually been to anything but a lay Sangha, and that's more than typical, I think.
It would be good if there were more monastic sanghas around. It also would be good if you could locate whatever monastic sangha that you're closest to and go check it out. Where do you live?
There's one in Miami. It's a couple hours away. I met somebody from Thailand, and I could just tell that she was, raised Buddhist, pure of heart, and I would love to be in a sangha with people that had that mindset. And I really don't think these Western sanghas with lay teachers, and it's always Zen, are really that isn't in my heart. Like the Bodhisattva vows, I'm not into that.
All right. Max, let me take a moment about the Bodhisattva vow, and then I'll give you the question. Right. First off, the Buddha said things like vows or renunciation is what ordinary people do, that it's not a noble activity, that in fact, the noble way of being a bodhisattva is remembering to be a bodhisattva right now, not taking a vow and then forgetting all about it until you see them next time and then you take the vow again. The problem with the vow, almost always the bodhisattva vow, has something to do with may all beings be enlightened before me. So, way off into the future someplace, here we have 10,000 or more, maybe 100,000 or more bodhisattvas, and everybody else is enlightened but these bodhisattvas. And they're always pushing each other, saying, you go first. I'm going to be the last one. You go, you go. In other words, they begin to make it into a competition. The fact is that you can't make anybody enlightened other than guess who? You've got one person that you can remind and remember to practice. And when you're practicing correctly, you're already right then and there as enlightened as you need to be. It's not some destiny. It's not some great big thing that happens way into the future. That's one of the big problems, I think, more so with Western society. But it is a human problem in the sense that they can't just be happy right now. They've got to wait and wait and wait and then get some great big happiness off into the future. So what we're actually practicing from the teaching of the Buddha is practice right here, right now, to have the body relaxed, to have the feelings of being safe, secure, comfortable, and satisfied, to have the attitude of, oh, we've got this wired, I can do this, and to have wholesome thoughts. That's the Satipatthana. If we can do that, if we could be satisfied with this very moment, what else do you want? And if you do want something, then that means that you're not satisfied. Anything and everything, all of enlightenment is simply to be satisfied right here, right now. Practice often being satisfied. And you'll be less and less angry, less frequently angry, and less intensely angry, because you can remember, wait a minute, are we having fun right now? Not a bit. So, Max, go ahead. You had your hand up.
Sure, this one's actually the comparison to eating food and being aware that piqued a question related to my practice. So, and it's about really attending to what's happening right now versus absent-mindedly, sort of unaware, grabbing the next mouthful right away. So, and this is a bit more general maybe. So when I am aware, I notice that anything I attend to, the mind keeps clinging to it for a few seconds, maybe even 15 or longer, like sounds, sights, thoughts, or sensations, kind of like a speed bump. It almost gets stuck to it for a second, almost like there's dissatisfaction, and the mind wants that thing to last longer somehow, so it lingers on it. So either I'm just overthinking that, but the
Well,
instruction was to stop and see what you're doing, and then another step is to make a wholesome change. Is this one of those cases?
yes. When we see that we're clinging, even for 15 seconds, we can say, aha, I see that. That's actually, I would say, one of the most important things that the Buddha ever said was that one phrase, aha, I see you, Mara. Because when we say it like that, aha, I see you, Mara, we've already made the change. We're no longer stuck in the Mara. Now we're seeing it with great joy. Aha, I see you screwed up, rather than, oh, I've screwed up, or I didn't screw up, it was his fault. Or we can say, aha, look at that process. That's the
So
real practice, is to be able to say, aha, I see what's going on, and see it happily.
okay. It wasn't clear to me that I screwed up in any way. It just looked curious. And these are neutral things. Like I don't know. Like if I feel my right elbow and then I go and do something else, it's gonna linger for some time. It's not gonna, like, my mind has moved on to something else, or I'm attending to something else, but it's like that other thing continues to just uh, follow me, or just, I don't
Yeah,
know.
but don't see that as a problem. Just say, aha, I
Right.
see that I'm doing that.
Okay.
So,
Great.
Ken, you got your hand up.
I was just gonna I was just gonna recommend David to check out the the Open Sangha Foundation website if he's looking for a Sangha, either an online one or a in-person one. You've got the big map with all the Watts and all the groups on. It'd be good to point him in that direction.
Yes,
Yeah,
you can.
I found the one that I was inferring very close to my house. It's the Zen one, but I also just went back on there and looked up the actual monastic one, and that's, like, maybe do the 2-hour drive once in a while and just see what it's like there as an option. I'm kind of at a lack for a spiritual friend.
Actually, I would always recommend that if you're looking for a spiritual friend, the one to do that with is to go to the nearest wat and go to the head monk, what you might call an abbot. In Thai language, it's Chow Wat. And the reason for that is because he's going to be a monastic that's been a monastic for 20 years. If anybody knows the Dhamma, it's going to be the senior monk there. And they're generally very happy to see a Westerner. And if you can, do things for him, like become his driver. I was doing that for a while, even though I was a monk. I had access to a car, and I really appreciated the ability to travel with, his name was Ajahn Prasert, the monk, head monk at Fremont, California. And I really got a lot of benefit out of that. And so that's what I would recommend, is actually spending time with the abbot of whatever wat that you can be around, as opposed to a lay practitioner. Now, I don't know too much about the Zen community, but I do know that they do have a tradition to where there's a lot of people who will put on Zen-like clothes, take a Zen-like name, and become a Zen-like master without ever having been to Japan or ever spent time with a real Zen master. And so go ahead.
What's really big with them is direct transmission.
Yeah, but you got to go get somebody to get transmitted from. And in fact, this is exactly what I was talking about when I was saying go become the driver of the abbot of Theravada Wat, is so that you can start getting some of that good old direct transmission.
Yeah, I'd never heard the word Wat before, but the place that I'm seeing now is called Wat Buddhadasa of Miami.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I invite you to go check them out. Go make friends. Go ask around, who's the abbot here? Who's the big dude? Or who's the old man? And by doing that, you see, that will give you the ability to get some of that good old direct transmission. And what is that good old direct transmission? Is just simply being around a happy dude. It rubs off.
Gotcha. Thank you.
All right. So does anybody else? Edward, glad that you joined us a bit late. Do you have anything to say?
You got me thinking. Can you hear me, guys?
Yes.
Yeah. I know me and Brett went to a Wat, and he's friends with one of the monks there. And now I'm thinking I should go be friends with one of them too, and maybe find some more Wats around me. So, because that one's 2 hours away, be cool to find a closer one. It's kind of hard to find times to go. Like, they're not posted on the website, and then I call the numbers, and often nobody answers. So it's like, I don't know if it's a Georgia thing, or is that common?
All right. Here, let me explain it like this. In Thailand, and historically, the societies have used a lunar map, a lunar calendar, which the quarter of the moon, the full moon, the empty moon, and the in-between moons 4 times a month, but it doesn't always fall on 7 days. But in the West, the tradition is using it on once a week. So even though the Buddha days may not always be that way, I think, in fact, some Thai facilities here in Thailand are beginning to take on that Western mentality of let's do it 1 day a week on the Western calendar rather than on the lunar calendar. And the 1 day a week then winds up being the best days would be Saturday morning or Sunday morning. Sunday morning is the time when you're going to find most of the Thai people or most of the Asian community that's supporting that one. I mean, somebody had to build that building, and more than likely the people who either built the building or pay the rent on the building that they're using will be there on Sunday mornings. You can also count on that since Thailand is a matriarchal society, the old ladies actually run the place. You won't see that. The men will pretend to the Westerners that they run the place, but really it's the old ladies who run the place. And so if you know that, go make friends with some of the old Thai ladies or the old Sri Lankan ladies. They're the ones who can get you into the Wat, get you into the Abbot, etc., like that. And so I would say they also generally, the habit is to have lunch around 11 a.m. up to 12 a.m. on Sunday mornings and Saturday mornings, and that's when you'll find most of the people there at the Wat. So those are the two times to go, is on the weekend, mid-morning. And then after lunch, when all the Thai people have left and gone home, the monks are still going to be there. And if you're wise, you will too. So hang out after lunch. Yeah,
Gotcha.
I saw that.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Good advice.
So does anybody else have anything to say? How about you, Nick? Haven't heard from you much.
Yeah, just Friday nights aren't always perfect for meeting up, but I was glad I could make it today. I'm going to see Tenisaro in a couple of weeks. I'm going to go stay at Meta Forest in Southern California for a week. So
Good.
forward to that.
Yes, I'm glad to hear that you're going. All right. Alex, do you have any final things to say, old Mr. Lion? I see you there. The Buddha was a lion, but we've got one.
Just thank you, everyone. I appreciate it. Thank you, Dhammarato.
All right, Mikey, why don't you take this thing home?
Okay, yeah. Please do go and check out that Open Sangha Foundation map. It is worth noting that there's still more Watts and centers to be added to that map. So if you'd like to volunteer, we can assist you and show you how to add new facilities right there on the website. And you know, people like David and Eddie, if you guys would like to, please feel free to send me a message, and I can help you search for other Watts that may be in your area that aren't on our map currently. And another thing I'd like to say is, yeah, there's nothing wrong with participating in online Sangha. In fact, we've got many people here who do that and who contribute. Ben's been doing weekly calls now on Discord. Eddie has a Discord server. Ivan's been helping manage some Discord things. Alexander's been doing one-on-one calls. And, you know, of course, always nice to see Nick here at the Skype calls. So we've got quite the thriving online community here. So if you're not able to be in a physical Watt, or whenever you're not in a Watt physically, you can, of course, spend time in Sangha online. This is quite a great gift that we have here that they didn't have in the time of the Buddha. So take advantage of it, and yeah, make friends, because yes, that is the whole of the path. When we make friends with each other, it reminds us the value of making friends on the inside as well.
Yes, we have the Sangha group on the OSF website. Go and make some friends there. In fact, there's people on that we don't even know yet. And so that's a good place to pick up some friends. And also, we're still using Skype We have the Sangha US and the Sangha UK groups on Skype. And so people are posting there and finding things. And Edward, you mentioned that about Brett. Brett's actually quite active on the open Sanghas. Oh, the camera just died. Well, it's back again. Okay. So, thank you all. Thank you all for coming. Max, good to meet you. Nick, it's good to see you again. Wow, you're an old student. You go back, what, 5 years or more?
2019, maybe 2018, a long time. Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you so much
So,
for having me here. So happy to be here.
excellent. We'll see you now.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Have a good one.
Yep.
Thank you.
Be well.